Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do something that is requested by you all, which I do all the time anyway. And it is something I've briefly touched on, but I've had such a high request for help in this area that I thought it'd be a really good idea to do that for you today. I want to talk to you about necessary brushes. Some might be unnecessary, but brushes that you need for eye makeup, ones that come in handy for certain eye shapes. I was about to say eye textures, but that doesn't really make sense. And things that you can use every day for more everyday looks, and then brushes that you might need for more technical looks as well. I have done a few videos on blending and I'll link them all below. So this isn't going to be about blending, it's going to be more about brushes. But just before we get into that today, if this is your first time here on my channel and it's the first time we are meeting each other, my name is Robert. I'm a professional makeup artist here on YouTube and also in real life, and it's my goal to help you become a pro yourself or just someone who's really good at makeup. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Okay, let's get on with it. So I'm going to break down these brushes into categories and sets and each stage that you do in terms of eye makeup. So I'm going to start with blending brushes because my first step in an eye makeup kind of routine, guess that's a word, is to start with a transition shade or the shade that's going to go through the socket. This is what I like to do in makeup. I would love for you guys to share your thoughts below and what you do and what are your favorite brushes as well. I'm going to show you mine. They all tend to be from the same place because I like to buy brushes in bulk, or I've worked for a company that have given me brushes, so they are all same brands basically, but I love them. I love the brands. I'm going to start with blending brushes. To me, there are 4 necessary types of blending brushes. So we have a larger blending brush, we have what I call a medium-sized blending brush, and then we also have a small kind of what I call detail blending brush, and then we have more of a tapered blending brush. So these two here are great for people that have more of quite a lot of eye space, or even like mine that are slightly hooded but you can still get into the socket. If you do have more of a hooded eye, I would knock out this large one here and I would go for these 3. This becomes your large blending, this becomes your more medium, and this becomes your tapered detail blending brush. So when I apply a transition shade, I will always use my kind of medium large blending brush, which is this one. My large one is what I consider the buffer, so that's always going to buff out detail. This is going to apply the color and blend it in, and then this one I always go on top. So I'll take this through the socket a tiny bit higher with my first color and blend it as much as I can. I then use my big brush to soften it up. Once that is all blended, I then take this little smaller brush here, and this you'll notice is quite flat on the side but has a domed top, and that's what I take right through the socket here. That way you get a really intense line, you get more precision and more definition. If you don't want that, you don't have to need it, but it's there in case you need it. I would then buff over that again with my big blending brush. This is what I feel like kind of buffs everything together and brings the whole look together and blends everything in. In terms of a small like tapered brush, I find that really useful to get right in this outside corner, right through that socket here if you want to do an even smaller kind of concentration of color, or even if you're doing like a halo eye, you want to go here and here. And I also find it really useful to take under the eye with your first transition shade. So it is almost if you want to do detailing, but a blended out detail. So next up are 2 brushes that I just use all the time, and I always recommend you get both of these for every kind of brush kit or brush set. This one is so ancient, it looks disgusting, but this is just a flat eyeshadow brush. And then we have more of like the what I call a pencil brush, or some people call it, I don't know what some people call it, I call it a pencil brush. So this is just to apply eyeshadow to the lid. That's all it is. I have about 3 of these in my freelance kit because they come in handy for picking up a dense amount of a color and applying that to the lid. This one I have about 3 or 4 in my kit personally because I find that useful, and I get that right on the inside corner for highlight, underneath the eye for darker shadow. I even find it really good if you want to just highlight a cupid's bow, or if you want to go down the middle of a nose very finely. They're 2 brushes I use all the time and I think are necessary to a brush set or kit. Or what am I saying? Your brushes. So those are kind of our necessary ones. So here are a few brushes that you don't necessarily need. You can create a whole look using the brushes that I just showed you, but these are what I call like detail brushes, and I'm gonna go through every single one of these. I find they come in really handy, and maybe you might think I don't need those. They might be more handy if you want to create more artistic looks. hooded eye people, some of these are going to be quite great for you, and I'll talk about those as we get to them. So first up is this very flat concealer brush. So this is artificial hairs, so it comes in useful for anything that is a liquid texture because it kind of just slides off the brush. Real hair brushes are like our hair, they have pores in, so they absorb product a little bit more, whereas an artificial brush let product slide off. So this is what I use for any kind of detail on the eye, a cut crease for example, or if you want to do a liner that's like a white liner or something, but you're going to use a liquid based product. This is the one I use because it's so flat, it has that point, and it also has the kind of square edges, so you can almost stamp any detail onto the lid. So let's talk about 3 brushes that are all kind of in the same category, and these are kind of like smudging or detailing brushes. So they are all almost like that pencil brush, but they are smaller or denser. So in the middle here, you can see I have it's quite a stubby, quite a tough, tapered, pointed brush. And this is something I would use, say you're doing a really dark outer corner on the eye, and it isn't quite dark enough. It's really good to kind of just press that black onto the lid. Any kind of detailing where you want a really harsh line that's like a medium sized line, if that makes sense, this is a really good one to use. This is also really good if you want to smoke out a liner or you want to get like a black shadow on the lid and buff it out, because it's just big enough that it's not gonna make it too thin. It's going to make it look smoky and buffed out. This is actually one of my new favorite brushes. It's very small on the end. It's almost like the end of a Q-tip, but rounder. And this has become incredibly useful to blend tiny little details, whether that's on the inside corner here, under the eye. Say you want to make a really defined, again, like twiggy kind of thing. Although this one looks really stubby and really short, it's actually really good at smudging and blending out. So if you do want to do a very precise line, but you want it to look smoky, this is probably the best one to go for. This is really good for any kind of detailing basically. And then we have this very tiny, you can barely even see it, small brush from Charlotte Tilbury. Tilbury, not Tilbury or Tilbury, which I've heard some people say. But it's just very small. This one I find really good if you say you're wearing like a pencil liner on a bottom waterline. You know, sometimes you can get that divide. There's almost like a gap between where the pencil is, your lashes, and then the liner. Brush a little bit of this onto the actual pencil and then smudge it under the eye, or even smudge a pencil on and then use this to smudge out, or even getting detail right in here. Anywhere that's very fiddly, but you need very precise definition, this is a great one to go for. Completely unnecessary, completely unnecessary, but it's a very good one to go for. Also as well, of course, you need a liner brush. I do prefer these more like thinner paint brushes, and I know some people prefer the angle brush. I do like this one because I like to take my time defining the flick, and I like to get in smaller areas and as close to the lash line as possible. This one I find you can hold against and kind of pull outwards. With an angle brush, I feel like you have to get the shape of a liner perfectly in 1 or 2 strokes. Whereas with this, you have a little bit more time, you have a little bit more play time with a liner, and you can get a little bit more detail and precision, and you can make the line into a shape that you want with a small brush like this one. Next up, we have 2 kind of flat edge brushes. These are very skinny to look at that way, and then kind of flat on the top. So I have 2 here, one that's almost like paper thin, then I have one that's a little bit more stubby and a little bit more fluffier. So they're both gonna do the same thing. This one has more precision, whereas the fluffier one is more of a blending. So one that's sharper with more precision, I like to use, say, to carve out brows, maybe cut off like eyeshadow a little bit with concealer. Anything where I need a dead straight line, this is the best one to go for. It's not so good for creating, say we want to do like a shape like this on the eye, because it is square. And if you need that kind of dip, you're going to need something a little bit smaller. That's when an angle brush might come in handy. But this one I always find it useful for something. It always comes in handy somewhere. But for carving out brows, this is the best brush. This one I'll use in a similar way. Say I want to cut off eyeshadow here, but I don't want it to be a dead straight line. I want it to be a little bit more smoky and blended. Because this is fluffy and a little bit more like a blending brush, I can use that to blend. And then I can also use this for shadow under the eye to create a really smoky blended out look. Say I just want to use one color, but I want to do it quick and I want it to look nice and smoky. I'll get like a dark brown and just buff that out. Although I have a lot of small pencil brushes, this one I find sometimes you really need to kind of blend and buff. This is the best one to go for. Another brush that comes in really, really handy is the Anastasia Beverly Hills brush. I forgot the number. And this one's really, really great because it has your angle brush one side and then your kind of spoolie or brow comb on the other side. And also it's very, very thin. So it's a really, really good brush to use if you want to do individual hair strokes or you want to make like more brow detail. And also it's kind of two brushes in one. I don't usually like those because I don't know how to store one end, do you know what I mean? But this brush has a protection on the other side, so you can store it upright if you want to. That's really the only kind of brow brush I would recommend. I do love this brush from Mykitco. This is really great for a bushy eyebrow, or say you're gonna use it with like a soap or something like that, because it's almost toothbrush-like. So it can comb through every single brow hair and give you a really nice spiky, bushy brow. One thing I wanna say to you guys, which I've been doing for years and years and years, and it's a lifesaver. I don't like glitter. And you're like, why are you talking about this? I don't like glitter, not because I don't like the look of it. I like glitter when it's in like a liquid form, but loose glitter, loose pigment or reflex or something like that, I kind of have a little bit of a weird phobia of it because it stays on the skin and it's everywhere. When people think they're being cute and they like blow glitter in your face or they throw glitter in the air, that terrifies me. So I've been using, and I have some and I can't be able to get up and go and get them, those old fashioned disposable eyeshadow little applicators. They are amazing for glitter or loose pigment or something where you really need to pack on the product. So with those, they're really good to tap and pack glitter on and get it to stick to the lid, or of course with like glue underneath or something. But if you really want dense application with a glitter, those are incredible to go for. So those are my necessary and kind of unnecessary brushes for eye makeup. Let me know if you have any favorite brushes below. Let me know your favorite brands as well. I really want to buy more brushes. If you found this video really helpful, let me know, because then I can do like a face one, like foundation, concealer, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I will see you very soon. Bye.